What happens at Grandma's stays at Grandma's is a model for you and your grandkids. If it's fun, it's fair game. But lately, hip pain has you grimacing more than laughing. And that's the moment you realize life's too short to put off treatment any longer.
The Joint and Spine Center is Cincinnati's leading destination for orthopedic care, with hundreds of joint replacements each year. So when a moment has the power to change the rest of your life, go to the one place with the power to change it for the better. The Christ Hospital Health Network. This changes everything.
The Pound This Podcast is brought to you by the Christ Hospital Health Network. This is the Pound This Podcast, episode 713. Why am I gaining weight when I'm eating healthy?
I want to lose weight, but I don't know how to get started.
What should I meal prep every week?
How do I get those sweet booty gains?
Inspiration for your healthy lifestyle. The Pound This Podcast with Amanda Valentine.
What up, friends? Thank you so much for listening to the Pound This Podcast. I am Amanda Valentine. If you're brand new here, thank you so much for checking out this podcast. A little backstory about me is I have been obese for most of my life, spent over a decade yo-yo dieting, and then over the past 10 years, I started the mantra of make the best decision possible in every moment, and that has led me to a much happier, healthier life. I've lost over 100 pounds, have maintained that for most of the past decade, minus 2020. We know what happened that year. I've completely changed careers from a radio career into now I am a certified personal trainer, certified nutritionist, a certified weight loss specialist, and behavior change specialist. Oh my goodness. So I do all the things, health and fitness for myself, and I do this podcast, and I also work as a personal trainer and health coach all over the place. So that's me. Hello. Nice to meet you. And through all of this, not only through my own journey and conversations I have, but now as a quote unquote fitness professional, a question that I get all the time is like, what the heck? Why am I gaining weight or why am I not hitting my goals? I'm eating healthy. This is stupid. And I have totally lived this. And we all go in seasons, I think, of that kind of thinking too, where you're like, I'm doing the right things, right? And then you're like, what the heck? Why isn't the scale moving, or how come I'm not feeling a certain way? You get in your head and then you're like, well, screw it. Then I'm just going to do whatever the heck I want. And I'm not even going to think about this anymore. And that cycle continues until you do that long enough. And you're like, oh, but I want to make some changes. And, so I would say the biggest things in my experience, not only for myself, but with people that I've worked with, of when you say I'm eating healthy, or I'm exercising, and how come the weight's not moving, or I'm actually gaining weight, or what the heck's going on? I'd say it could be several things, but most likely it's portion control, and then the definition of healthy, I guess, which I don't want to putting things into good or bad categories. I think you should be able to eat whatever you want, again, in moderation, and think about portion control and where it fits into your life and it fits into your goals and what you want for yourself. But if you're thinking to yourself like, well, I'm eating peanut butter and apples, that is healthy, right? Like I'm choosing that over Cheetos. That feels like that should be a healthier option. Why isn't things moving in the direction that you want them to? How much peanut butter are you eating? Because those nut butters have a butt ton of calories and fats. And I think that's just an example of, yes, you're eating those healthier choices, but especially stuff like the nut butters, trail mixes, stuff like that, is sneaky because it's a lot of calories in a little bit. And so if you're like, yeah, I snacked on a whole bag, or I grabbed a couple fistfuls, or again, you're not really knowing what that portion size is, you could be consuming a lot more than you think. And not that I think that you need to be totally on your own ass of weighing and measuring everything out forever. But I definitely think that you need to spend some time doing that just for knowledge of yourself. I'm a huge fan of just tracking, at least for a week, whether you're just getting started or you're in this space where you're like, I'm doing these things and it's not working, to be brutally honest about what you're actually eating and how much of it. Because you can be doing all these quote unquote healthy things for yourself, but if the portion is way out of control and you thinking in your head like you're intuitively eating and you're just like, I think I'm eating like 2,000 calories a day. That feels like about what I'm doing. And then you track, and it could actually be 2,500, 2,800, 3,000. It could be, I'm just throwing out numbers out there. But then you're like, oh, dang, well, maybe I'm not in a caloric deficit. I'm not reaching those goals because it's actually more than I thought it was. Or you did go through a period of like tracking and weighing and measuring or doing those sorts of things. You kind of fell off of that. You started eyeballing it, and then everything just kind of becomes a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more until you're like, what the heck? How come this isn't working? And there could be a million other reasons. You know what I want to say? Like, so it could be hormonal issues. You could be having inflammation. It could be a lot of other things. Again, this is just broad stroke answer and something that I would look into first and see how this goes before you start taking some deeper dive stuff, unless you just know yourself and you know what you need to do to kind of take care of those things. But usually in this situation, or you hit a plateau, I would recommend really tracking and just being honest with yourself of like what you're doing. I just had a conversation with a client not too long ago, and I asked her to track. So I'm like, so I can help you build out, a realistic menu, like of things that you like, and let's see where your starting point is, and then we can move forward. And she's like, well, I didn't track because I went out to eat at this place, and I went out to eat at this place, and I went here, and I didn't want, and I'm like, no, I'm not judging you, dude. Like, if that's what you're doing, like, we need to take an honest look at it. And man, trust me, I've been there too. And it's so easy to be like, I'm just going to ignore that I went to Taco Bell today. I'm just not going to write that down as if it doesn't exist. And I'll tell you, the only person that you're hurting in that is yourself, and not just because of your weight or whatever. It's just because you're not being honest about what you're actually doing. You know what I mean? So it's like, if that's what you're doing, or you're grabbing a couple extra fistfuls of M&Ms throughout the day, you just got to be completely brutally honest with yourself about what you're doing, because it's just information. You don't have to trash yourself for it. You don't have to tell yourself you're a bad person because you've been eating M&Ms or you've been eating Taco Bell. It does not make you a bad person at all. It makes you a human that loves delicious foods. But if you have a goal and you're trying to reach those goals and you know you need to make some changes, you got to be brutally honest about what you're actually doing, because that will give you a clear picture of where you need to go. And I just did a podcast not too long ago with Christine Lucan about financial health. And it's the exact same thing there. Of if you really want to clean up your finances, you want to save some money, you want to do investing, you got to be brutally honest. How much money am I spending? How much is coming in? Or am I spending it at? You might not want to, this is where I'm at right now. Like, I don't want to look at the number of how much money I spend on coffee in a month. That seems horribly uncomfortable. I just would rather be in the dark. But guess what? I'm not going to hit any of those financial goals. I'm not going to be saving any money into that savings account. I'm not going to be able to do those things I would like for myself that are my own personal goals until I take a very brutal look of how much money I'm spending on those things. Because that's the only way to fix it and readjust things, is to be brutally honest about where I am and where I can change things around in that current state to move forward. So it's not all just about weight loss and food. And it's just like, and I know that it's so we have to eat, right? And so then that's where things get muddy, and we have so many emotional attachments to food, just like we do money. But I think that having those parallels at least help in my mind to be like, yeah, we can understand that we're not going to be able to save money if we don't look at how much money we're actually spending. That makes sense of like, well, we're not going to be able to hit those health and fitness goals without being brutally honest about what we're eating, how we're sleeping, how much water we're drinking, about how much movement we're getting. Like, we have to know where we are to know where we're going to move forward. So that's where I'm not going to say track forever and do that till you die. I hope to not be doing that, although I'm doing it now and I actually enjoy it. So I don't feel, like I'm being punished by tracking my food. I don't know. It just makes me feel better. It just makes me feel, I guess, more in control. And so that if you just track for a week or a few weeks, see where you're at, readjust, I think that helps. And then also, again, be like, well, if I'm eating healthy foods, look at what kind of nutritional content those healthy foods are giving you. Is it a nut butter? Then exactly how much fats and sugars and calories are coming with that. And it's not to punish yourself and like be like, oh God, I don't want to know, but it's like information you need to know. Or if you're eating like, I don't know, lean cuisines or something like that, or you know, something that is more of a processed food that you view as healthy, of like really like take a deep dive in those ingredients and look at the label and see if like, well, is this really optimal health for me in reaching my goals? Again, there's nothing bad. Is it good for you, and is it serving you for what your personal goals are? So I think it's just taking a brutally honest look at your portion sizes, what you're eating, and looking into those foods you're eating and really getting a knowledge base about those things. Other than just, and I know this is hard, and man, I have lived through this, and this was a complete game changer for me, of not just buying into you seeing on the label where it says healthy or low fat or high protein or whatever, of like, that's marketing. And as a person who worked in media and marketing for almost my entire life, then I know how that stuff works. And I love the book by Michael Moss, was it Salt, Sugar, Fat? I always get the sequence of those messed up, but it's all about how foods are marketed towards us. So I'd say, especially if you're just like, well, this says lean on it, or this says healthy on it, and you're just assuming that it's good for you and your goals, then yeah, turn that box around and read the back. You know, just because it's Annie's mac and cheese instead of Kraft mac and cheese doesn't necessarily mean that's the healthiest thing or the best thing for you and your goals. And especially, again, portion control. Are you eating that every day? Are you eating it once a week? Of really kind of taking an audit of everything you're doing. And I know that stuff sucks. I mean, it, like I just said, like I don't want to look at how much money I spend on coffee. Like, it sucks to look at it. It's like shameful, right? But that's the way out. If you're not happy with where you are, which I'm going to assume is probably where you are if you're listening to this episode, of like, you know, what the heck's going on, then that's just one of those things to hit the goals of like, I know I'm not going to load that savings account up until I know how much money I'm spending on dumb crap like coffee and like fingerboard and stuff like that from Amazon, which I don't need to spend $12 on a little surfboard for my fingers that goes outside of a car window whenever, you know, I'm a passenger in a car. But it also brings me joy. So I think that's one of those things too, of like, yeah, do I need to spend $12 on a dumb little toy? No, but it also brings me a lot of joy. And I also think that's kind of the same mindset that you think in with food sometimes. Are you thinking about this thing of like, yeah, dude, I love me some Taco Bell. And Taco Bell doesn't really serve my ultimate goals, but I really love it. So yeah, sometimes I'm going to go eat some Taco Bell. Not every day, but yeah, I can still do that and not be a bully to yourself and tell yourself that, you know, I'm no good at this and I have no willpower and all of those things of like, no, it's the balance. But I think it's having the knowledge of how you're using it first so you can understand the balance. So that is my biggest broad stroke answer to that question, which I've heard a lot and I've struggled through myself of like, and even for me of like, I'm eating so many freaking kale chips. There was a point in time where I was just motoring kale chips. I was making them myself. And I'm like, okay, well, how am I eating so many kale chips as a snack, but yet the scale isn't moving for me? Well, because I wasn't measuring out and I wasn't keeping an eye on how much olive oil I was using to do it. And I was using a lot of olive oil. So it's one of those things of like, yeah, I'm eating healthy foods, right? I'm eating olive oil and freaking kale. Like, it seems like, yeah, your rock star status. It's like super mega healthy. But also I was putting hundreds of calories of olive oil on all of these things. And that's still a lot of calories to consume from everything else I was eating and where I was in that moment. And that's where it's like, okay, well, if I'm not achieving my goals, Even though these things are crazy healthy, I still have to evaluate them. And I really need to start kind of weighing and measuring this, at least for now, to know what that portion looks like. You know what I mean? Instead of just eyeballing it or, measuring with my heart. To be like, okay, well, if I've got goals I need to hit, then we need to kind of know some specifics here and then weigh and measure that stuff out. Again, it doesn't have to be forever, but to give yourself the knowledge of what that portion looks like and till however long that feels good for you and wherever you have a healthy relationship with everything while you're still feeling good mentally, physically, reaching your goals. You know what I mean? So I think that's just where it gets slipped up so much of like, yeah, when you tell somebody I'm eating kale chips every day and I'm gaining weight, it's like that doesn't seem to make sense until you're like, well, are you putting a half a cup of olive oil on it? Like, yeah. Well, then maybe that's where that is. Okay, I see. Or, I'm making a smoothie and I'm putting, just 2 big ass spoonfuls of peanut butter in it. I have no idea how much it is. It just seems like it's about 2 tablespoons. It feels like 2 tablespoons in my heart until you actually measure out 2 tablespoons and you're like, oh, I was putting a lot more than 2 tablespoons in there. So I think just the realization of portion sizes, and I know sometimes even thinking about that can be like, oh, I'm going to know the real portion size, and then I'm going to get all bummed out because it's going to be like bird food. That's not going to be that much. But you'll surprise yourself. I think as a person who loves to quantity eat and who has struggled with binge eating disorder, I like the hand to mouth motion. I like large quantities of food and having those portions set and eating food. That's why I'm such a meal prepper. And I've been meal prepping for 7-8 years now, definitely over 7 years, that having those portions already set out gives me a stopping point. And I have learned when I hit that stopping point, I am actually full and I am satisfied. But at first, looking at that portion, I'm like, that is nothing. There's no way that fills me up until I eat it. I sit with it. I'm like, I actually am full. I didn't need to eat an entire skillet full of stir fry. It's just, I wasn't portioning things out and seeing what the actual portion size for my own goals were. And so I just think that that stuff is brutally important to take an audit of what you're doing, be honest with yourself, and then reevaluate from there. And if you're having a hard time struggling through that and you're like, listen, I don't even know where I'm supposed to be. What the heck's a freaking macro? How am I supposed to know what my calories or macro should be? How am I supposed to know what the correct portion size would be? You can always shoot an email to me, Amanda@AmandaValentineBites.com, and I'll try to help to the best of my abilities. There's a lot to dig into, but I would very highly recommend hiring my friend Sarah. She's my own health coach right now with Team Fit With Me. She will go through all of that with you. She's going to run labs with you if you want, kind of see your blood work, seeing if you're dealing with any thyroid diseases, if you have any gut health issues, PCOS, hormonal dysfunction, see if there's something else at play other than the portion size sort of thing. You know what I mean? And really kind of help you see where you're supposed to be with your macros, your calories, and help get you on the right track with that, including helping you with meal plans. And they have meal plan options that are reviewed by a registered dietitian. They have a food relationship coach partner. So if you're like, okay, yeah, I need some help. I need an accountability buddy. I want to learn about this stuff. Either you're just getting started or you're like, yeah, I need to do a hard focus and see where I should be. Definitely check out Team Fit With Me. If you go to teamfitwithme.com/poundthis, you'll get 10% off month 1 of all packages, plans, and add-on services. That link is in the show notes. Again, it is teamfitwithme.com/poundthis. So if that's what you're looking for, you need somebody to help you with these things, that's an absolute avenue that, you can hire Sarah for whatever amount of time you need to just be like, hey, I just need to get reset or I needed to get started. Then let me set sail on my own. If you're like, listen, I need some long-term help. I've been after this a while and I am just at my wit's end. She's got all sorts of different lengths of time that you can do that sort of stuff with. But it's brutally hard to do on your own, which is why I think it is important to have a health coach, or just a community of people to ask questions to, which is why if you ever have a question, again, email me. You can find me on Instagram. You can pound this. I have all sorts of, look in the show notes of all the other places you can find me. I'm all over the damn place. But it is, and what's so hard is not only trying to figure this out about where you should be, but that's always going to change. I mean, we're always aging. Our bodies are changing. Our lifestyles change. A global pandemic can come out of nowhere and throw things upside down. Or you could get sick, or someone in your family gets sick, or you move for a job. Like, life events really throw a wrench into things sometimes. And what was working for you before, and you're like, listen, I was eating healthy before. I'm knocking out my goals. I'm feeling like a rock star. Life gets in the way. Pandemics get in the way, whatever it is. And you're like, and now I am struggle bussing. I'm doing what I did before, and I'm slippering all over the place, and I can't get a grip. And again, like, it's don't be a bully to yourself. It's that, don't trash yourself. Like, I did this before and I can't do this again. What the heck's wrong with me? Ask some questions, man. Maybe get some coworkers, some friends together, family, whatever. And, this is your health, and you want to live your best life. And we've been so reminded in the past 2 years of how short life can be. And it's like, if you want to show up for yourself and live your best life and do the things you want to do in, the body that you want it in, and to feel good mentally and physically, and then, but you need some help to do that, absolutely reach out for help to do that. And I also just think too of like, so much of what I do is for me to live my best life. And, there's been portions of this journey of where it has been about like, okay, I get obsessed with the scale, or I want to be this size, or I want to do this. But ultimately it's about just living the life that I want to live. I just want to feel good in my own body. I want to feel healthy physically, mentally. I want to be able to do the things that I want. If I want to go hike up a mountain, I want to physically be able to do that. It's just about feeling good, maximizing your life. And if making health as a priority to do those things, I would 100% recommend it. And that's where it comes to the things of like tracking, self-auditing is not the most fun, but if it's going to lead you to a place where you genuinely just love the life that you're living, and you're feeling good, and you have energy and all of those things, then, taking a hard self-audit and doing those things is absolutely worth it, which, is what the struggle I'm going through right now with finances is. Just like, yeah, well, just be brutally honest about how much money you're spending on coffee, Amanda, and it'll take off a lot of stress and make life easier in the long run. It's going to be a little painful and shameful for the first few months, but then it gets better. And I know it does, because I've lived through that journey with health and fitness, as I continue to do. So that's my recommendation for that. I really hope that's helpful. If you ever have any questions, or you want to hear a topic on this podcast or a guest, always reach out. Amanda@AmandaValentineBites.com. I love getting emails from listeners, because I don't know who the heck's listening until you reach out to me. I record these podcasts and throw them out into the world, and they have no idea what they're doing out there. And if you find any value in this podcast or any podcast, please, please, please share. It helps so much. Or if you can, write a review on Apple Podcasts. It's also incredibly helpful. And thank you so much for listening. I will chat with you later.
AmandaValentineBites.com